Cole Ashford had 60 days to find a bride, or the largest deal of his life would collapse before Christmas. He sat very still at the head of the long glass conference table while the words settled, while his board members studied their water glasses or their cufflinks, or the pale winter sky beyond the windows of the 38th floor. A dozen of the most expensive minds in Manhattan, and not one of them was willing to look him in the eye. "It's the license clause," David Choi said, gently, as if gentleness could soften it. "Stability of leadership. They want a married chief executive at the head of the table when the papers are signed. They want a wife in the photographs. We have until the end of December." Cole looked at the Larson file in front of him. The merger was 4 years of careful work. The Larson Group, family-owned for 3 generations of hotels and harborside resorts, would not sell to an unmarried 32-year-old whose tabloid life was a study in champagne and silence. Cole understood the clause. He had read their family charter himself, the year his father had dismissed it as old-fashioned. "Then I will find a bride," he said. He did not say where. There was no one to say. He had not been on a real second date in 6 years. He had not, in any honest moment of his adult life, imagined a woman in his kitchen. He had a merger that required a marriage, and a marriage that required a woman, and he had no idea where, in the city of 9 million people, he was supposed to begin. David Choi cleared his throat. "There is a place," he said carefully. "A friend of my mother's used it 20 years ago. It's a kind of old-fashioned firm. They do introductions. They are very discreet. They are also, I am told, very good." "A matchmaker," Cole said. "A matchmaker." That afternoon, on the 7th floor of a quiet brownstone on East 68th Street, beside a brass plate that read Marchetti Matches, Discreet Introductions since 1981, Cole Ashford rang a bell. Lena Marchetti opened the door herself. She was not what he had expected. He had expected a powdered older woman with pearls and a pamphlet. Instead, he saw a young woman in a soft cream blouse and dark trousers, holding a chipped coffee mug that said, "World's Okayest Daughter," in faded letters. Her hair was pinned back loosely. Her eyes, when they met his, were calm and unhurried, as if a billionaire on her doorstep was simply the next item on a list. "You're early, Mr. Ashford," she said. "Come in." The office had once been a sitting room. There were tall windows letting in the cold autumn light, a worn velvet sofa the color of dark wine, a brass desk lamp warm with low yellow, and a bookshelf full of leather-bound notebooks with years inked on their spines. A small fire was lit in a real fireplace, crackling softly. The room smelled of cedar, old paper, wood smoke, and something warm and sweet on a stove down the hall, like apples and cinnamon. The wide oak floorboards were smooth under his shoes. A black cat regarded him from the windowsill, its eyes bright green, and yawned, showing small white teeth. "You run this alone?" Cole asked. "My mother ran it for 40 years. I run it for now. And she passed away 3 winters ago." Lena set down her mug. "Sit, please. Tell me why you're here." He had practiced this on the way over. He had drafted, with David, a careful sentence designed to communicate the situation without communicating the desperation. Standing in this small, warm room with a black cat watching him, he forgot all of it. "I need a wife," he said. "Within 60 days. The wedding can wait until summer, but the engagement must be public by year-end. I have a merger that requires a married chief executive. The terms are not flexible. The salary, however, is." Lena did not move. She did not pick up a pen. She did not even open one of the leather notebooks. She simply looked at him for a long, quiet moment, and Cole had the distinct sensation that he was being weighed. "No," she said. He had been refused exactly twice in his adult life. Once by a hotel owner in Lisbon, and once by a horse. He blinked. "I beg your pardon." "Marchetti Matches does not arrange contracts," Lena said. "We arrange marriages. There is a difference. A contract is a transaction. A marriage is the rest of someone's life. My mother turned away 3 senators and a duke for asking what you just asked. I will not be the one to break her record. Miss Marchetti, Lena, please. Lena. He drew a slow breath. Then I have come to the wrong place. Perhaps. She tilted her head. Or perhaps you have come to the only right one. May I ask you something? Yes. Do you actually want to be married? He opened his mouth and shut it again. The fire cracked softly. The cat began to wash its paw. Somewhere in the brownstone, a kettle whistled and was lifted off a flame. I want, Cole said carefully, to keep the company my grandfather built. I want the merger to succeed. I want my father to stop calling me at 6 in the morning to tell me I am wasting the family name. I have not had time to want other things. Lena was quiet. Then she said, 60 days is too short for a marriage, but it is enough for an honest beginning. I will not find you a contract bride, Mr. Ashford, but if you are willing to be slightly truthful with me, I will find you 7 women, real candidates, each compatible with you in a different way. You will meet each of them properly. You will be honest with them about the timeline. At the end of 8 weeks, if one of them has truly chosen you and you have truly chosen her, I will help you announce it. If not, you will pay my fee and walk away no worse than you came. 7. My mother always said 7 is the right number. 3 is not enough to compare. 10 is exhausting. 7 gives you a real spectrum. Cole stared at her. She stared back. He had the unfamiliar feeling of negotiating with someone who could not be bought. Your fee, he said at last, standard, plus a clause I will write in myself. You may not ask any of the 7 for a contract. If you do, I withdraw and the fee is forfeit. Why? Because they deserve to be considered for who they are. And because you, Mr. Ashford, will not survive a marriage you bought. He did not know what surprised him more, the answer or how quickly it landed. He sat down on the velvet sofa, which sighed under him as if it had been holding a place for him all afternoon. All right, Cole Ashford said. Find me 7. Lena's intake interviews lasted 2 days. She had warned him that they would. She had also warned him that she would ask questions she had no right to ask, and that he would either answer them or she would walk. He had agreed in his car on the way home, and then spent the night staring at his ceiling, wondering what he had agreed to. She came to his office the next morning at 9, in a navy coat and the same calm expression. She sat in the chair opposite his desk, opened a leather notebook with this year's date pressed into the cover, and uncapped a fountain pen. Tell me about your mother, she said. Cole flinched. He recovered quickly, but she saw it. He could tell by the small, courteous way she did not look up. She was gone when I was 9, he said. A long illness. She was kind. She read aloud to me. My father has been a different man ever since. What did she read? Stevenson, Werner, anything with a ship in it. Do you keep her books? In a box, Cole said, and then, surprising himself, in the apartment closet, top shelf. I have not opened the box in 12 years. All right, next. Where in the city are you happiest? Happiest is a strong word. Less unhappy, then. He almost smiled. There is a stretch of the Hudson, around 79th, where the boats come in at sunset. I walk there when nothing is on fire. What is on fire most of the time? My company, my father's expectations. A magazine somewhere is always preparing to write about me. Have you ever cooked a meal for someone? My grandmother. Once. Toast. I burned it. Were you proud? She was. Then yes, Lena wrote. What time of day do you feel most like yourself? He thought about that. 6 in the evening. he said. On a Sunday, when the office is quiet and the river is gold. Are you ever in your apartment at 6 on a Sunday? No. Where are you usually? At the office. Doing what? Reading reports, or pretending to. She lifted her eyes from the notebook. They were patient eyes. They did not press exactly. They simply waited for him to say the rest. Or, he said quietly, I walk along the river until it gets dark. Alone. Alone. Do you like that, Cole? Honestly. He realized then that no one had asked him that question in his adult life. The honestly part. Not David, not Margaret, not the women who had drifted briefly through earlier years before drifting away. He realized that the answer had been sitting behind his teeth for a decade, waiting to be asked for. No, he said. I do not. Lena did not write. She nodded once and turned the page. What do you read now, when no one is watching? He hesitated. Naval history. And a poet from Galway my mother used to like. I have one of her books in my desk. Show me. He turned, opened the third drawer, and pulled out a slim volume worn at the edges. Lena did not take it from him. She only looked at it, and then up at him, with something in her face that was neither pity nor surprise, but a quiet kind of recognition, as if she had just seen a window where she had thought there was only a wall. Thank you, she said. Last question for today. What do you imagine when you imagine being married? I have not imagined it. Try. He tried. He thought about his apartment, the empty rooms, the big windows that took the river light at dawn. He thought about his mother's voice once, drifting from the kitchen, a song with no name. He thought about his father at 68, eating breakfast alone at the long table. He thought about Larson's family compound in Maine, the porch swings and the dogs and the children running through the kitchen barefoot. Someone in the kitchen, he said finally. When I come home, that is all I can imagine. Lena closed her notebook. That, she said, is enough. She came back the third morning with a folder, a list of names, and 7 photographs paper-clipped together. These are my long list, she said. 22 women, all accomplished, all unattached, all aware of who you are. I will narrow it to 7 over the next 10 days. Each of the 7 will agree, in writing, to one introductory meeting with you. If both parties wish, a second meeting follows. If both parties wish again, a third. I will be present at the first meeting only. After that, you are on your own. You will be present? Briefly, I want to see you with each of them. Why? Because you don't yet know what you want, Mr. Ashford. And the only way to discover it is to watch your own face when you are with someone who could be it. He looked at her for a moment longer than he meant to. Cole, he said. You said Lena. Then it should be Cole. She smiled for the first time. It was a small smile, polite, careful, but it changed her face the way the river changed at sunset. Cole, then, she said. She rose to leave. At the door she paused and turned back. One last thing. Each of these women has been told the truth. They know the timeline is 60 days. They know a public engagement is required. They know you have a merger. What they have not been told is anything personal about you that is not already in a magazine. Why does that matter? Because, Cole Ashford, somewhere in the next 8 weeks, one of them is going to lean across a dinner table and ask you a real question. And how you answer it will tell me everything. She closed the door behind her. He sat at his desk, looking at the photographs of 7 women he had never met, in a building he owned, with a merger he could not fail. And he realized that he had no idea what he wanted. He realized something else, too, but he did not allow himself to name it. The matchmaker had a quiet smile that changed the river. The first candidate was Vivian Bellamy.
Lena had picked her on purpose for first.
"She is who you would marry if you were marrying for the magazines," she had said in his office that morning, sliding the photograph across the desk. "If you want her, we will know early. If you don't, you will know what you don't want." Vivian was 31, tall, polished, with the kind of golden hair that society columns wrote sentences about. Her family owned 3 private banks, 2 galleries, and a sailing fleet. She had been on the cover of 2 magazines that year, both for charitable reasons, and both lit by the same photographer. The first meeting was at a restaurant on Madison Avenue, with tall windows that looked out at autumn leaves, gold and rust against a clear, cold sky. The room smelled of coffee, butter, and a slow fire of cherry wood somewhere behind the kitchen. The white tablecloths were stiff and bright. Crystal glasses caught the warm afternoon light and threw small rainbows on the wall. Lena sat at a small side table with a glass of mineral water and a notebook. She did not pretend to be reading the menu. Vivian came in like a planned event, kissed both of Cole's cheeks before he could rise, and complimented his cufflinks before she had read his face. "Cole, darling," she said, "you really do look exactly like your photographs. That is rare." "Thank you, I think." She laughed, sat, ordered for both of them in 2 sentences, and then began to map his life. Within 10 minutes, she had told him which charity gala to chair next spring, which architect would be redoing the Tribeca penthouse for the wedding, and which family friend at the Times would write the engagement piece. She did not ask him what he liked to read. She did not ask him about his mother. She did not, for a single second, look at the river through the window, although the river was extraordinary that day. Cole tried. He answered her warmly. He let her finish her sentences. He asked about the galleries her family ran. She told him that art was an excellent investment and that she was considering a Basquiat. He asked which Basquiat. She said the famous one. After 45 minutes, Vivian reached across the table to touch his wrist. "You are very serious for a man on a first date," she said. "You should smile more, darling. Your face is a brand." Cole smiled. He did not feel it, but he produced it. Across the room, very faintly, Lena lifted her water glass to her lips. He caught the movement out of the corner of his eye. There was nothing in her expression. There was, however, a small line in her notebook he had not seen before, and her pen moved once and stopped. Vivian ordered dessert. She suggested a charity match at the polo grounds for their second meeting. Cole agreed. She kissed both his cheeks again on her way out, leaving a small print of color on each. He stood, paid the bill, and crossed the room to Lena's table. "Well," Lena said, "she is perfect on paper." "Yes. You knew. I suspected. You picked her first to teach me something." "I picked her first," Lena said carefully, "because if you marry her, the merger closes, the magazines applaud, and you live a life you have already been living. You should know that option exists. You should know exactly what it tastes like. Then you should decide." He looked at her for a long moment. She had a small notebook, a glass of water, no makeup beyond a touch at her lips. She was not, by any of Vivian's measurements, anything special. She did not look like a magazine. She looked like a person. "Lena." "Yes." "What did you write down just now?" She closed the notebook. "Nothing important." "Tell me." "I wrote that you forgot to look at the river." He paused. The river had been spectacular. He had forgotten. "Was I supposed to look at the river?" he said quietly. "No, but you always do, in your office. I noticed yesterday morning. The water is what calms you. So I picked a restaurant by the water for your first meeting. I wanted to see what made you forget it." He sat down across from her without being invited. The waiter, sensing something unspoken, did not approach. "Lena," he said, "will you tell me what you actually do? Because I do not think I understood until today." She looked at him. The lines around her eyes softened. "I notice," she said. "It is an old-fashioned profession. My mother used to say that most people do not need to be matched. They need to be seen first. After that, the matching is easy." "And you have been seeing me," Cole said. "All week?" "Yes." "And what have you noticed?" She tilted her head. The light from the window caught her cheekbone. "I have noticed," Lena said, "that you are very tired, Cole Ashford, and that you would like, more than anything, for someone to ask you about your mother and not flinch. I cannot give you that woman in a folder, but I can introduce you to 6 more, and we can keep looking." He stayed seated for a long time after she left. The second candidate was Rebecca Lynn, 34, partner at a corporate law firm, sharp as cut glass and twice as efficient. Cole liked her immediately and was relieved to like her. The meeting was at a quiet gallery during a private opening, the white walls bright under soft halogen, the hardwood floor cool and smooth, the air faintly sweet with old varnish and chilled champagne. Lena, again, sat in the corner with a glass of mineral water she did not drink. Rebecca was excellent company. She knew the merger laws better than David did. She made Cole laugh twice, both times at his own expense. She asked good questions about his company, his day, his goals. She did not, however, ask anything that did not have a clean answer. She asked the way a surgeon asked, efficiently, with no time for stories. Toward the end of the evening, Rebecca leaned in. "Cole, let me be direct. I would consider this. The arrangement, I mean. I think we'd be a strong team. 2 careers, parallel tracks, mutual respect, very polite divorce in 5 years if the merger renegotiates. I don't need a great love. I need a good partnership. Are we on the same page?" Cole did not answer right away. He felt the truth of what she was offering. It was clean, decent, even kind in its way. Rebecca was an honest person. She would not lie to him about the quiet. She would not pretend to want what she did not want. There was real generosity in that. But across the room, very quietly, Lena Marchetti was looking at a small painting of a winter beach. She was not looking at him. She was simply standing in the half-light of the gallery, with her hands in her coat pockets, looking at a painting of a winter beach, the way some people listen to a song they used to know. Cole looked at Rebecca. He thought with sudden clarity about a kitchen with someone in it. "Rebecca," he said gently, "thank you for being honest with me. I think you are extraordinary. But I do not think I am going to be a 5-year partnership husband. I am going to be a bad bargain in any contract you write." She studied him. After a moment, she gave him a small, warm, professional smile. "Then you should not waste my time, Cole, and I should not waste yours. Shall we?" "We shall." She offered her hand. He shook it. They both walked out of the gallery in the same direction without speaking, parted at the curb, and that was the end of Rebecca Lynn. He found Lena by the painting of the winter beach. "Did you tell her not to?" he asked. "No, she decided herself. She is too clean a person to want what you cannot give." "Lena." "Yes." "Two down. Two down." He looked at her, and at the small winter beach over her shoulder. "Whose painting is that?" he asked. "My mother's friend. He used to paint the same beach every year. He said the beach changed because the painter changed. The beach was the same." "Did your mother believe that?" Lena's smile was very small. "She believed that of people, too." She left. He stood in front of the painting for a long time, looking at the same beach. He did not yet know what he was looking at, but he was beginning to suspect. The third candidate was Eve Sanders, 27, a model with an enormous social following and a real estate license she had taken on a dare. The meeting was a sponsored charity dinner at a glass restaurant above the city, the floor-to-ceiling windows holding a cold blue twilight. The table lit with small, warm candles, the cutlery heavy and bright in his hand, the air rich with rosemary, butter, and roasted lemon. Eve was very beautiful. Eve was also very photographed. By the time Cole sat down, 3 different cameras had captured them through the windows from across the street. She was warm, easy, full of light laughter. Within 15 minutes, she had told him about her favorite small restaurant in Lisbon, her grandmother's apple cake recipe, the dog she missed, and the first apartment she had ever bought with her own money. Cole found her surprising. He found her likable. He also found, somewhere between the appetizer and the main course, that he had said the words, "my mother," out loud for the first time in a year, and that Eve had not flinched. She had looked at him directly, with a small kindness in her face, and said, "Tell me about her, if you want. I have all night." He looked across the room. Lena was not there. He had specifically requested it. He had told Lena that morning, "I want to do this one alone." She had looked at him for a moment, and then nodded. "Fair," she had said. "Eve's a good person. You won't need me." He had wondered what she meant. He understood now, halfway through dinner, that Lena had known Eve was a good person. He understood also that he was looking for Lena across the room, and that she was not there. Eve was telling him about the dog. He listened. He laughed at the right moment. He answered her questions warmly. He did not, in the entire evening, forget the river. He did not, in the entire evening, want to. When dinner ended, Eve walked him to the elevator. She kissed his cheek, gently, kindly, no insistence. "Cole," she said, "you're a good man, but you're not here. I hope she knows." He froze. "I'm sorry?" Eve smiled. "Whoever she is, I hope she knows. Good night." The elevator door closed on him alone. He stood in the descending box, looking at his reflection in the brushed steel, and he thought, 3 down. He also thought, she. He thought it again the next morning, when his father called him at 5:58 a.m. Edmund Ashford did not believe in pleasantries before breakfast. He did not believe in pleasantries at any other time of day either, but 5:58 a.m. was when he began. "Cole, the Bellamy girl, Vivian. I'm told you saw her on Tuesday." "Good morning, Father." "Have you decided?" "No." "I have made inquiries on your behalf. Her family is sound. Her mother is reasonable. Her father owes me a favor." "Father, I need you to understand something." His father's voice was clipped, careful, the voice of a man who had practiced it. "The merger is one matter. Your future is another. Your mother and I were not married for love. We were married for sense. We made a partnership. We made you. That is enough for any reasonable man. Pick a sensible woman, marry her, and be done with the theater." Cole stood at the river-facing window of his apartment in his shirt sleeves. The Hudson was steel grey under a low sky. There were 2 boats moving slowly south. "Mother loved you," he said. "Yes." "Did you love her?" There was a long silence. "Cole, that is not a useful question this early in the morning." "It is a useful question, Father. You have raised me to think it was not." He had never spoken to his father like this. He had thought the words, sometimes, on the long evenings, in the long silences. He had never said them aloud. He did not know where they had come from now, except that a matchmaker with chipped coffee mugs had asked him, 3 days ago, what he imagined when he imagined being married. "Vivian Bellamy," his father said evenly, "is a sensible choice. Make it. The merger closes. The magazines settle. I will not call you again about this matter." I am meeting 4 more women, Father, per the agreement. What agreement? With my matchmaker. His father laughed. It was the dry, surprised laugh of a man who had not expected to be entertained.
You hired a matchmaker?
Yes. Cole, you are a serious man. You have a board. You have a merger. You do not hire a matchmaker like a Victorian widow. This one is good, Father. I think you would like her if you— I will not meet her. His father's voice was suddenly cool again. I will meet the woman you marry. I will not meet the woman who arranged it. There is a difference, and you will learn to respect it. Pick Vivian. Goodbye. The line cut out. Cole stood at the window for a long time and watched the slow boats and tried to remember what his mother had read aloud to him on the night before she went into the hospital for the last time. He could not remember the book. He could remember the kitchen. He could remember her hand on his hair and her singing softly at the stove. He picked up the phone and called Lena. Are you free, he asked, to walk along the Hudson at lunch? There was a small pause on the other end. He could hear her brass desk lamp click off. That is not professional, she said carefully. It is not. Cole? Lena, I've just spoken to my father. I would like, for 1 hour, to be with someone who has read Stevenson. Another small pause. 12:30, Lena said. 79th Street Boat Basin. I will bring sandwiches. She hung up. He stood at the window with the phone in his hand for a long minute. Then he went to the closet and, for the first time in 12 years, he opened the box on the top shelf. His mother's books were inside, Stevenson at the very top. He picked one up. The smell of old paper and cedar rose into the room. Lena was already there when he arrived, sitting on a green bench near the boat basin, a paper bag beside her and her cheeks pink with cold. The Hudson was bright and busy, and the air smelled of brine and bread and the cold, sweet edge of late autumn. A gull cried sharply overhead. The wooden bench was rough under his hand. She was wearing the navy coat, the wool soft at the collar.
She had a thermos, warm against her glove.
Egg salad or roast beef, she said as he sat down. Whichever you do not want. Roast beef, then. Coffee? Please. She poured. They ate quietly for a few minutes, watching a small sailboat tack against the wind. A dog ran by with a tennis ball. A child shouted at a seagull. Your father called you, Lena said at last. How did you know? Because I would have called you if I were him. You think he is right? I think he is afraid. Cole turned to her. She did not look at him. She was watching the small sailboat. Afraid of what? He said. Afraid that you will not pick the way he picked. Afraid that if you do not pick the way he picked, then he will have to ask himself what he actually picked. And he is not ready for that question, Cole. Most fathers are not. He looked at her sharply. You are very direct for a matchmaker. My mother taught me. She said the women in our line have always traded politeness for usefulness. Men will not listen to a polite woman. They will sometimes listen to a useful one. He laughed. It surprised him. You laughed, she said. I did. That is the first time. Is it? Yes. The sailboat came about. The wind shifted. They ate in silence again for a while. Lena, he said, after a long time, why did you not become something else? You are very smart. You speak 5 languages. I looked you up. You could have been anything. Why this? She did not answer right away. She looked at the river. My mother was sick for a long time, she said finally. I was 22 when she became too tired to take meetings. 23 when she was gone. I thought I would close the business. There were people in my mother's last appointment book she had promised to find. I went through it. There was a man whose wife had left him for the 3rd time. There was a woman who wrote me a letter saying my mother had told her not to give up on love. I could not close the book and walk away from those names. So I finished the year, and then the next year, and then it was the work I did. Are you happy? I am useful. That is mostly enough. That is not the same thing, Lena. She turned and looked at him. Her eyes were the color of cold tea in a clean cup. No, she said, it is not. He held her eyes for a long moment. Then he looked back at the river. He understood, at last, what he had been understanding for 3 days and refusing to name. The matchmaker was lonely too. The fourth candidate was Meera Patel, 33, a cardiothoracic surgeon at a hospital uptown. She was small, brilliant, unafraid, and exhausted. She met Cole for breakfast at 6:30 in the morning between her shifts, because that was the only time she had. The diner smelled of bacon, hot syrup, and strong coffee. The vinyl booth was warm, the table cool under his palm, the early light grey and soft in the windows. She wore scrubs under a wool coat. Her hair was in a knot. She drank black coffee and ate 2 soft-boiled eggs in 9 minutes. He liked her. He liked her enormously. She told him 3 honest things in 20 minutes. That she did not have time to date, that she was meeting him as a favor to Lena, and that if she were to consider marriage at all in the next decade, it would be to a man who never asked her to apologize for missing dinner. I never would, Cole said. Many men say so. Few mean it. I mean it. She studied him over her coffee.
You might. You strike me as decent, but I see who you are looking at.
I'm looking at you. You are looking at me politely. You are looking at her honestly. There is a difference, Mr. Ashford. In my profession, we learn to read it on faces in waiting rooms. Husbands looking at wives, fathers looking at daughters. Honest looking is a particular thing. He set down his cup. Meera, he said quietly, I do not know what to do with what you have just told me. That is not my problem to solve, Cole. I am very tired and I have a 6-year-old patient who needs me upstairs in 12 minutes. She finished her coffee and stood. Go and be honest. It will save us both a great deal of breakfast. She left 2 20s under her plate, even though he had told her twice that the meal was on him. He sat in the booth alone and watched the early light come up over the avenue. 4 down, 3 to go.
And a surgeon at 6:30 in the morning had said honest looking, with the same precision as Eve Sanders had said she.
He paid the bill. He did not call Lena. He went to his office and worked, and he did not call Lena. He did not know what to do with what was happening. That afternoon, Lena came to his office without warning, in the navy coat, with a folder. She set it down on his desk. Caroline, she said briskly. 5 o'clock at the Strand Bookshop Cafe. She has read your full bibliography. She is excited. Be kind. Lena. I have to go. I have a 4 o'clock with a long list candidate. I will not be at the bookshop. You said you wanted to do these alone, and Caroline is a good person, and you will be fine. Lena, sit down for a minute. She did not sit down. She stood at his desk, with one hand resting lightly on the back of the visitor chair, and she was, very slightly, not breathing the way she usually breathed. Cole. Sit. She sat. He looked at her for a long, careful moment. The afternoon light came in through his river window. Her hair was a little less neat than usual, and there was a small mark of something on the cuff of her blouse. Ink, probably. And she was looking at his desk lamp instead of at him. Lena, he said, are you all right? I am fine. That was not the question. She lifted her eyes to his. Cole, please. We are 48 hours out from Candidate 7. Do not make this harder than it has to be. What is harder than what has to be? You know what. He did know. He could see the shape of it in her face, and in his own. He could see, suddenly, the entire arc of the next 10 minutes if he allowed it. A confession, a refusal, a closed door, a brass plate. He could see her going home tonight to a black cat and the brass desk lamp, and the careful dignity of a woman who would not be the answer to a question she had spent 6 weeks helping him ask. He did not allow it. He stood. He walked around the desk. He did not touch her. He stopped at the river window with his hands behind his back. 48 hours, he said quietly. Then we will see. Lena rose. She took her folder. At the door she paused. He did not turn. Cole? Yes. Be kind to Caroline. I will. She left. He stayed at the window for a long time and watched a single small sailboat tack against the wind. And he did not exactly smile. But something behind his ribs began finally to breathe. The fifth candidate was Caroline Whitlock, 29, an associate professor of 19th century literature at Columbia. She was warm, slightly nervous, brilliantly clever, and clearly excited to meet him. The meeting was, at her cheerful insistence, at a small bookshop cafe in the village. She arrived early. She had 3 books in front of her on the table when he sat down, 2 of which were about ships. Lena said you might like these, Caroline said, blushing slightly. He felt his throat tighten in a way he did not expect. Did she? She sent me a list of things you read. She is very thorough. He looked at the books. One was a Stevenson. One was a Conrad. The third was the small book of poems by the Galway poet his mother had loved. He had not told Lena about the poet. He was certain of it. He had told her about Stevenson, about Verne, about naval history. He had said the word poet, but not the country, not the name. Caroline ordered a tea. She talked, kindly, about her thesis, about her father, who had been a naval officer, about her 2 cats. She asked him good questions about his work that revealed she had read about his company in advance. Cole liked her. Cole admired her. Cole could imagine her in a kitchen. But the small book of poems sat on the table between them, and the small book of poems was not a coincidence, and Cole could not stop looking at it. After 30 minutes, he said, gently, Caroline, may I ask you something a little outside the scope of what we are doing here? Of course. Did Lena send you the 3rd book? Yes, she said it was a long shot. She said you might not have told her about that one yet. She said if you had, it was for a reason, and if you had not, it was for a different reason. I confess I have read it 6 times, so I was excited to bring it. He looked at the book. He thought about his mother in the kitchen, singing softly. He thought about Lena saying, my mother used to read me Stevenson too, when she had not, exactly, but had implied she understood. He thought about a winter beach painting and a brass desk lamp and a black cat that had begun, on his last visit, to sit on his shoe. Caroline, he said quietly, I'm going to be honest with you, because you are very kind and you deserve it. I think you are wonderful. I think you would be a remarkable wife to a remarkable man. I do not think I am that man. Her face fell. She recovered with grace. I see. It is not you. It is, I am afraid, that I have already begun looking at someone. Lena. He could not speak. Caroline gave a small, tired, generous laugh. I told her this would happen, she said softly. She told me I was wrong. She told me she does not get to be looked at, only to look. I do not envy her, Cole. I hope you are kinder to her than her mother was to her. What does that mean? Caroline gathered her books. She slid the book of poems across the table to him. Keep it. It was always for you. As for what I said, ask her about her mother, if you want to know her. Goodbye, Cole. She left. He sat at the small table with the book of poems in his hand for a long time. 5 down, 2 to go.
And he had spent 40 minutes with a brilliant woman and learned 3 things about Lena that Lena had not told him.
He did not call her that night. He could not exactly say why. He stood at the river-facing window of his apartment for an hour, with the small book of poems open in his hand, reading the same page he could not afterward remember. He thought about the 30 minutes at the bookshop, and Caroline Whitlock's tired, generous laugh, and the words, "Ask her about her mother, if you want to know her." He thought about the fact that Lena had sent the 3rd book, knowing he had not told her about the poet, knowing he might not yet be ready to know that she had guessed. He thought about Lena alone, in her brownstone, with a black cat and a brass desk lamp and a chipped coffee mug. He thought, with a small, painful clarity, about the fact that he had spent 6 weeks asking her to send him toward other women, and that she had, every single time, sent him toward another woman, with grace and with good intentions, and at no point had she allowed herself the dignity of saying no. He thought, briefly, that he could call her now, drive over, knock on the door. He thought what that would do to her business, to her mother's name on the brass plate, to the careful line she drew between her work and herself. He set the book of poems down on the desk. He called Margaret instead. Margaret Hale had been his father's secretary for 22 years, his mother's friend for 15, and his own assistant for the last 9. She was 64, sharp, kind, and almost as discreet as Lena. She had known Cole since he was a child. She had been at his mother's funeral, holding his hand. She still kept his calendar, although she pretended not to. "Margaret, I need a favor." "You are calling me at 10 p.m., Mr. Ashford. The favor better be worth my supper. Tell me about Marchetti matches." A long pause. "Why?" "You know why." "Cole?" Margaret's voice softened. "I knew Rosa Marchetti. Your mother knew Rosa Marchetti. Rosa was the person your mother went to see the spring before she met your father." He sat down. "Mother went to a matchmaker. Your mother had been engaged to someone else, briefly, 2 years before she met your father. It did not work. Rosa was the one who told her to wait. Rosa was the one who introduced her to your father 6 months later, at a benefit. Your mother and Rosa stayed friends until the end. Rosa came to your mother's funeral, Cole. You were 9. You may not remember her. Lena was not at the funeral. Lena was 12. She was at home. Rosa was raising her alone by then." He closed his eyes. "Margaret." "Yes?" "Why has my father never told me any of this?" "Because your father, Cole, does not like to remember that he was once chosen for, instead of choosing himself. It does not fit the way he tells the story now. I have always known. I never thought it was mine to say." "Did Mother love him? Truly?" "Yes." "And he?" A long pause. "He loved her in his way. He has not been a man capable of loving in any other way since." He sat for a long time after he hung up. He looked at the book of poems on his desk. He looked at the river. He thought, my mother used a matchmaker, and Lena's mother matched my parents. Lena does not know that. Or she does, and she has not said. He thought, Lena does not get to be looked at, only to look. He thought, with a clarity that surprised him, I do not want to look only at the 7 anymore. I want to look at her. He thought, finally, but the merger. He turned off the light and slept very badly. The 6th candidate was Alana Strafford, 30, philanthropist, daughter of a senator, founder of 2 literacy non-profits. She was magnificent. The meeting was at the autumn benefit of the Manhattan Public Library, an enormous gala in the Great Hall. There were marble columns and orchestras, and small candles in glass jars on every table. Alana wore emerald green and looked like a painting. Cole had asked Lena to be present. He had asked her, specifically, to come as his arranged escort for the evening, to stand in the room, to watch, as she had at the first meetings, to be visible to him. She had looked at him for a long moment in his office that afternoon, and then said, "All right, I will come, but I will sit at a separate table. That is the line." "Lena, that is the line, Cole." He had said, "All right." He had not said anything else. Alana was charming. Alana was clever. Alana asked excellent questions about his foundation work. Alana, halfway through the second course, told him quietly that she had read his mother's old educational charity reports for a college thesis, and that she had been moved by them, and that she would be honored to revive the foundation if there was ever a place for her in his life. Cole, who had spent 6 weeks now answering questions politely while looking somewhere else, found that for the first time he was looking at the woman who was speaking. Alana was extraordinary. Alana was the kind of woman his mother would have liked. He felt, for one alarming moment, the door of an entirely possible life swing slightly open. Then his father walked in. Edmund Ashford had not been on the guest list. Edmund Ashford had been told, gently, by Margaret, that this was a private evening for Cole. Edmund Ashford had decided otherwise. He arrived in black tie at 9:15, late by design, and crossed the great hall with the slow grace of a man who knew every face and approved of about half of them. He came to Cole's table. He greeted Alana with 2 perfect kisses on the cheek. He told her she looked exactly like her grandmother, whom he had loved very much. He took the chair beside Cole. He poured himself a glass of wine the table did not have to offer. Then his eyes, slowly, traveled the room. They stopped on Lena. She was at a small table near a column, in a quiet, wine-red dress, her hair pinned more carefully than usual. She was watching, as she had at every meeting, with her notebook closed in her lap. She had not eaten anything. She had not, as far as Cole could tell, looked at him directly all evening. "And who," Edmund Ashford said softly, "is the young woman in red watching my son?" Alana, brightly, said, "Oh, that is Cole's matchmaker, Lena Marchetti." Edmund Ashford did not move. He did not change his face. "Marchetti," he repeated. "Of course." He looked at Cole. "I see." 3 syllables. Cole had heard them his entire life. They meant nothing to anyone in the world except him. And to him they meant, "I am disappointed, and I will explain why later, in a room without windows." Cole opened his mouth. He did not know what he was going to say. Edmund Ashford, calmly, raised his wineglass to Lena across the room. It was a perfect formal salute. It was the exact gesture a king performed to acknowledge a servant whose name he was not going to remember. Lena, in the wine-red dress, lowered her eyes for a half-second, then lifted them, then nodded once back at him, with an absolutely steady face. Cole watched. He did not stand. He did not say her name. He did not lift his glass. He sat, frozen, while his father saluted the woman he was beginning to love, as if she were furniture. It lasted 3 seconds. It might as well have lasted years. Then Edmund Ashford turned smoothly to Alana and asked her about her father's recent vote on educational funding. Alana, brilliantly, answered. The orchestra continued. The candles burned. The waiters refilled the wine. Cole did not look at Lena again for the rest of the evening. He could not. When the gala ended, Lena was no longer at her table. There was only a folded program and a small unused notebook on her chair. He drove home in silence and stood at his window for an hour, hating himself. She did not come to his office the next morning. She did not answer her phone. The brass plate on East 68th Street was still there. The door was locked. He sent a note. She did not answer the note. For 2 days, he sat at his desk, and worked at a merger he no longer cared about. The Larson lawyers came in twice. The Larson patriarch's grandson came in once.
David Choi watched him through every meeting with the careful professional concern of a man who had begun to suspect that the person at the head of the table was no longer there.
Cole signed papers. He approved memos. He did not, at any point, hear what was being said. At 7 in the evening of the first day, he drove past the brownstone on East 68th Street. The lights were off. There was a single, small lamp glowing in the front room of the second floor, and the silhouette of a black cat in the window. Cole sat in his car across the street for 10 minutes. Then he drove away without ringing the bell, because he understood, finally, that he had not yet earned the right to ring it. The morning of the second day, his father called.
Cole, the Vance girl, Chloe. She is free on Friday. The Larson reception is Friday. I have spoken to her father. The two of you may simply arrive together. The press will infer the rest. The merger will sign on Monday. The matter is closed. Cole stood at his window with the phone in his hand. "Father," he said quietly, "did you know, when you married Mother, that she had been to a matchmaker?" There was a very long silence on the other end. The kind of silence that was, all by itself, a confession.
Cole. "Did you know, Father?"
"I knew."
"Whose?"
"Rosa Marchetti."
"And Mother loved you, but she did not choose you, Cole."
"No." A small, dry sound, like a man laughing without joy. "She did not. We were introduced. She liked me well enough. I liked her enormously. We made a life, Cole. I am not ashamed of that. It is how reasonable people marry. It is how I would like you to marry."
"Father."
Cole's voice was very quiet. "Whose daughter has been in my office for 60 days? The silence on the other end was, this time, an entirely different silence. "I see," Edmund Ashford said at last. "Yes. I will be at the Larson reception, Cole. I will sit at the head table beside you and Chloe Vance. I will not, this Friday, watch you do something you cannot undo because of a sentimental impulse you have inherited from your mother."
"Father."
"I will not, Cole." The call ended. Cole stood at the window for a long time. The Hudson was lead grey. There were no boats today. He could see, in the reflection in the glass, his own face. Thinner than it had been 60 days ago, more tired, and, very faintly at the corner of the mouth, more honest. He picked up the phone again. He called Margaret. "Margaret, I need a favor. A real one, this time."
"I am listening, Mr. Ashford."
"I need to know what is in my mother's last letter. The one in your safe. The one she wrote me before she went into the hospital. I'm 32 years old, Margaret. I think I am old enough to read it." A long, careful silence.
"It is sealed, Cole."
"I know."
"She told me to give it to you on the day you married, or on the day you decided not to."
"Margaret, I have decided not to marry the woman my father has chosen. I would like to read it tonight."
"All right."
Margaret's voice was thick.
"I will bring it to your office at 6.
She brought it at 6. It was a single page, in his mother's handwriting, on the cream stationery she had used all her adult life. He read it once, standing at his desk. He read it again, sitting down. He read it a third time, with his hand over his face. "Cole, my dear, I have been sick for 2 years now, and I am told this winter will be the last. I will not waste your inheritance on regret. I will only tell you one true thing, in case the world tries to tell you a different one. The kindest day of my life was the day I went to see Rosa Marchetti, and she told me to go home and wait. I had been engaged to a man who would have made a careful life with me. Rosa told me, very gently,
that careful was not the same as kind, and that I had been raised to confuse them. She made me wait 6 months. Then she introduced me to your father, in the doorway of her office, on a Tuesday in March. He looked at me as if I were the first room he had ever walked into and recognized. Your father is a difficult man, I know. I have lived with him. He has not been a kind man to himself, and so kindness is hard for him to give. But he chose me, Cole. He chose me in the doorway of Rose's office, and he has chosen me, in his own halting way, every single day since. I would not have wanted my life any other way. I am writing this for you because I do not want you to be afraid of being chosen when the time comes, or of choosing, or of marrying for the right reasons, even if the world tells you the wrong reasons are simpler. Whoever you marry, my darling, marry her in a doorway. Make sure you can both see the room. I love you. Be brave. Be slow. Be kind. Mother. He sat at his desk in the failing light. The river outside was the color of cold pewter. The radiator hissed softly in the corner. The cream paper of the letter was warm under his fingers and smelled, very faintly, of the lavender sachet his mother had kept in her writing drawer. He did not move for a long time. When he stood, finally, he was a different man. On the third day, Margaret came in without knocking. "She left this for you," she said, and put a small envelope on his desk, and left without saying anything else. He opened it. It was a single page, in Lena's small, careful handwriting. Cole. The 7th meeting will be on Friday at the Larson reception. Her name is Chloe Vance. She is the woman your father has wanted you to marry since you were both children. She is kind, and she will go through with it if you ask. If you do not ask, I will return your fee in full. Either way, this is my last meeting. Lena. He read it 3 times. He sat very still. Then he walked out of his office, down to his car, and drove the 40 blocks to her brownstone. Her cat was in the window. The lights were off. The brass plate gleamed in the afternoon sun. He rang the bell. He rang it again. After a long minute, she opened the door. She was in soft trousers and a dark grey sweater that smelled, very faintly, of cedar and old paper, the way her office did. Her hair was loose, soft against her shoulders. Her eyes were red-rimmed, the lashes still wet. She had been crying, although he could not have proven it in court. There was a small, careful steadiness in her face that told him exactly how much it cost her to look at him without flinching. "Cole," she said. "Lena, you should not have come." "I should have come on Saturday." She was quiet. "I should have come on Saturday morning," he said again, because he did not know how else to say it. "I should have come the night of the gala. I should have stood up at the table and said your name. I did not. I was a coward. I am sorry." "Cole, let me finish." She did not stop him. "I have been sitting in front of 7 women for 6 weeks. I've liked some of them. I've admired some of them. I could have built a life with 1 or 2 of them. I could not have loved any of them. I am only just now beginning to understand the difference. My mother," his voice caught. "My mother went to a matchmaker once. Did you know?" Lena's eyes widened and then quieted. "No," she said softly. "I did not." "My mother went to your mother. Your mother told her to wait. Your mother introduced her to my father. I have been carrying that on the wrong shelf my entire life. I thought the men in my family chose. I thought your line was the line that made the choosing possible. But that is not what your mother did, Lena. Your mother saw. And then, when the seeing was finished, she stepped back. And you have been doing the same thing for me. And I've been letting you. And I'm ashamed." "Cole, please." "I'm not finished." "You are." She was crying now,
quietly. She did not raise her voice. "You are finished," she said. "Do not say what you are about to say. I have spent a week telling myself you were not going to say it. Do not. I am the matchmaker. You hired me. The merger is in 3 weeks. Chloe Vance is a kind woman, and your father loves her family. Do this. Do not turn me into the story. I have spent 6 weeks watching you decide who you are. I do not get to be the answer to that. I am the bench you sat on. I am not the river. Please go." He did not move. He looked at her, in her dark sweater, in the doorway of the brownstone where her mother had matched his mother 28 years ago, and he understood why she had to refuse him at the door. He took 1 step back. "All right," he said quietly. "All right, Lena." He turned and walked down the steps. Halfway to his car, he stopped. "Lena?" She was still in the doorway. "What? Will you come on Friday?" "Why?" "Because I am going to do something at the Larson reception that you should be able to see. I will not ask you to be anything to me. I am only asking you to be in the room. As a matchmaker, as yourself, as whoever you can stand to be." She stared at him. "What are you going to do, Cole?" He did not answer right away. "I'm going to make a choice," he said, "and I would like the woman who taught me how to make it to be there when I do." He turned then. He did not look back. He drove home with his hands very steady on the wheel. The Larson reception was held in the rooftop hall of an old hotel with a glass ceiling and a long view of the harbour. The light that evening was a soft, cold winter blue, threaded with the warm yellow of 200 candles burning quietly in tall glass jars. The air smelled of pine garments, beeswax, and the faint, sweet smoke of a wood fire from the bar at the far end. 200 people. Larson family in the front. Press in a discreet alcove. Cole's board at 3 tables. His father at the head table beside Chloe Vance, who was 31, dark-haired, kind-faced, and dressed in a soft gold gown that rustled gently when she breathed, and that her mother had clearly approved. Chloe was a good person. Cole had known her since they were both 8. They had played in the same garden in summer. They had sat next to each other at every Ashford Vance gathering for 2 decades. He liked her. He admired her. She was, in many ways, the woman his father had been arranging for, in slow, elegant steps, for as long as Cole could remember. She greeted him with warmth and a small, slightly nervous smile. "Cole?" "Chloe?" "Your father told me what tonight is." He looked at her. "My father," he said, "has gotten ahead of himself." She blinked. "I see." "Will you sit a moment?" She sat. He took the seat beside her. He spoke quietly, at the edge of the room, while the orchestra warmed up. "Chloe, you are kind and brave, and you have been kind to me since we were children. I am about to do something a little unusual. I would not do it without warning you. You do not deserve to be surprised in front of 200 people." Her eyes filled, just briefly. "You are not going to ask me?" she said. "No." She breathed out. She put her hand briefly on top of his. "Thank you, Cole." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I have been told who I am about to marry for 6 months. It has been a long 6 months." "Chloe, I am sorry." "Go," she said. "Whatever you are about to do, go and do it." He rose. He looked across the hall. Lena had come. She was in the same wine-red dress. She was at a small table near the column, with her notebook on her lap, her hands folded over it. She was not looking at him directly. She was, very faintly, looking at the harbour through the glass ceiling, the way some people listen to a song they used to know. Cole walked to the small podium beside the head table. The orchestra paused. The room turned. Edmund Ashford's eyes narrowed. "My father," Cole said.
would prefer that I begin the evening by speaking about the merger. I will, in a moment. But before I do, I am going to do something I should have done a week ago. The room was very still. Most of you know that I have spent the last 60 days in a process you may have read about in the columns. I will not pretend it has been quiet. I will say only this. I hired a professional 60 days ago to help me find a person to marry. She was not, when I hired her, willing to do the job I asked. She made me agree to a different one. She made me agree to be honest. She made me sit across from 7 extraordinary women, and she made me notice them. She made me notice myself. She made me, for the first time in many years, notice the river. The room did not breathe. I am not engaged tonight, Cole said. Larson, I am sorry. The clause in your charter is fair, and the deadline is real, and I will honor it. But I am not engaged tonight, because the woman I would like to marry is not at this table, and I will not stand at any table with someone else while she is in the room, watching me do it for the 8th time. I have done it 7 times. I will not do it 8. A small sound, somewhere in the room. A woman's quiet laugh of surprise. Lena Marchetti, Cole said gently. I know you do not want me to say this. I know you have spent your whole life on the other side of the door of this kind of conversation. I know you do not get to be looked at, only to look. I know this is not professional, it is not. I am not making you a deal. I am not asking you for a yes tonight. I am only asking you to allow me to look at you, in this room, for 1 minute, in front of 200 people, the way you have allowed me to look at every other woman you found for me. After that, you may decide what you want. The room turned, slowly, toward the small table by the column. Lena was very still. Her hands were on her notebook. Her face was very pale. She rose, slowly, with a small, steady dignity that was, Cole understood now, the exact dignity her mother had once used to refuse 3 senators and a duke. She did not speak. She walked toward him through the silent room. Her footsteps were quiet on the polished floor. The orchestra did not begin again. No one moved. She stopped in front of him. Cole, she said, softly enough that only he could hear. You are going to lose your merger. I know. You have a board, and a father, and 400 employees. I know. You should not be doing this. I know. She looked at him. The wine-red dress was almost the color of her cheeks now. There was a faint smile at the corner of her mouth that she could not quite hide. You have not even asked me a question, Cole Ashford. He almost laughed. All right, he said. He did not get on one knee. He did not perform. He simply looked at her, the way she had taught him to look in 6 weeks of trying. Lena Marchetti. I am 32 years old. I have been alone for most of my life. I do not know how to be married. I would, however, be willing to learn if you were willing to teach me. I have my mother's books in a box. I would like to read them with someone in the kitchen when I come home. I would like that someone to be you. Will you stay with me, Lena, while I figure out how to stop running? The room was very, very quiet. Lena opened her mouth. Then, in the small, unscripted way of a person who had spent a lifetime helping other people choose, and who had never, until tonight, been allowed to choose for herself, she said only, yes. It was a quiet word. It carried. Edmund Ashford set down his glass. The Larson patriarch, 81, stood up at his table. He did not look at Edmund. He did not look at the press alcove. He looked at Cole, and then at Lena. And then he raised his own glass, slowly. Mr. Ashford, he said, in a voice that carried. My charter requires a married chief executive. It does not require him to be married already. It requires him to be the kind of man who knows how to commit. I have, in the last 3 minutes, watched you become him. He turned to his wife of 60 years, who was smiling. We will sign on schedule. Welcome, Miss Marchetti. Cole did not let go of Lena's hand. David Choi, 3 tables away, set down his fork very slowly and pressed the heels of both his hands against the table to steady himself. And then he began, quietly at first, to clap. After a moment, the woman beside him began to clap. After another moment, the Larson grandson began to clap. After another moment, the press alcove began to clap. A thing the press alcove almost never did. And Margaret Hale, alone at the small table near the back, where she had been pretending all evening to be there as Lena's friend, rather than Cole's assistant, was crying, without trying to hide it. The orchestra, with the elegant, practical instinct of an orchestra that had played at 3,000 evenings exactly like this one, and exactly not like this one, began softly to play something Lena's mother might have liked. A waltz. Slow. Old. Cole looked at his father, once, across the room. Edmund Ashford was very pale. He did not speak. He did not raise his glass. He stood, slowly, and left the room. The waiters parted before him. The doors closed behind him without a sound. Cole watched him go. He did not, for the first time in his life, follow. He turned back to Lena, who was holding his hand the way one holds a small live thing, carefully, with both her own. "I am sorry," she said quietly. "Don't be. He will come around." "Maybe." "He will, Cole. My mother used to say it takes most fathers 7 years to come around. She said the 7 was the only number she trusted." He almost laughed. 7, he said. 7. The orchestra began again, gently, somewhere behind them. The room began to breathe. It took Edmund Ashford 11 months, not 7. The first 3 were the worst. Cole and his father did not speak. The merger closed, on schedule, on a cold Monday in early December, with the Larson patriarch in the front row and Edmund Ashford visibly absent. The columns wrote what they wrote. There were jokes about the Marchetti curse and the Ashford whim and the price of a billionaire who had stopped reading his board's mail. Cole did not, this time, mind. He went home each evening to the brownstone, where Lena had begun to spend her weekends, where the cat now sat regularly on his shoe, and where the velvet sofa held 2 of them now instead of 1. In month 4, Edmund Ashford sent a single typed letter. It said only, "I read your mother's letter. I had not known she had written one. I am, as ever, your father. I will be in touch in time." In month 7, he came to the brownstone unannounced. He stood in the doorway in a dark coat, holding a small paper-wrapped package, looking, for the first time Cole could ever remember, slightly nervous. He gave the package to Lena without a word. It was a small, leather-bound notebook from 1981, the year Marchetti Matches had opened. Rosa Marchetti had written a single line on the inside cover. "For the daughter, when she comes." Edmund Ashford had been carrying it, Cole later learned, in the inside pocket of his coat for 14 years. Lena had cried at her own kitchen table that afternoon, quietly, the way she did most things, with one hand over her mouth and the other one steady around a chipped coffee mug. Edmund had sat across from her, finished a cup of bad black coffee, eaten a piece of plain toast, and said almost nothing. When he stood to leave, he paused at the door. "Miss Marchetti," he said. "Mr. Ashford, I owe your mother a thank you that I am too late to give. I would like, if it would not be impertinent, to offer it to her daughter instead." Lena had looked at him for a long moment. Then she had walked across the small kitchen and, for the first time, put her arms around her father-in-law, briefly and lightly, the way one would around a man who had been holding his breath for 40 years. He had patted her shoulder twice and gone. In month 9, the engagement was formalized. In month 11,
on a clear June morning at the Larson family compound in Maine, Edmund Ashford came to the small wedding in a gray suit and a slightly tired expression. He sat in the second row beside Margaret, who had refused to sit anywhere else. He did not cry. He did not exactly smile. But he stood when Lena walked down the short grass aisle in her mother's dress, and he did not sit down again until Cole did. After the ceremony, Edmund Ashford asked Lena for a private word. They walked together along the porch of the old house, where dogs slept in the sun, and the harbor turned silver under a slow afternoon light. Cole watched from a distance. He could not hear what they said. He saw at one point Lena reach out and put her hand briefly on his father's sleeve. He saw at another point his father turn his face slightly, away from the harbor, and stay that way for a long minute before turning back. When they returned, Edmund Ashford did not speak. He kissed Lena on the cheek, formally, but not coldly. Then he kissed his son. It was the first time he had done so since Cole was 9. The reception that followed was small. There were 40 people on the long porch, mostly Larsons, mostly Ashfords, a few quiet matchmakers from Rosa's old book of friends. Margaret had organized lobster rolls and an absurd number of lemon tarts, on the theory that her late friend Rosa had loved lemon tarts immoderately and would have wanted the day to be in some quiet way about her. The dogs roamed under the tables for crumbs. The harbor turned silver, then gold, then silver again. A small 10-piece string ensemble played quietly on the lawn. There were no photographers, and no tabloid columns, and no wedding planners. There was, on the porch railing, a single open notebook with a fountain pen beside it, in case any guest wished to write something down for the bride and groom. By the end of the evening, it was 3/4 full, in 11 different handwritings, with a dog hair pressed into one of the corners. The Larson patriarch, 82 now, gave a short toast. He said only this: "I have been at 600 weddings in my life. The good ones are the ones where you can tell, from the porch, that the bride and groom did the choosing themselves." He raised his glass. "To Cole and Lena, who chose. May the rest of us learn from them." Edmund Ashford did not toast. He did, however, dance once, with Margaret, at her insistence, to a slow piece played gently on the lawn. He was a stiff dancer. He had, Margaret afterward reported, hummed under his breath at exactly one point, a tune from 40 years ago, which his wife had sung in the kitchen, and which Cole, listening from the porch with Lena's head on his shoulder, recognized at once. "What did you say to him?" Cole asked Lena that evening, on the long porch with the dogs and the slow harbor. She thought about it. She had a glass of cold water in one hand. Her hair was loose. She was wearing a soft cotton dress now, no longer the wedding dress, and she looked, Cole thought, exactly like a woman who had been quietly waiting for a porch all her life. "I told him," she said, "that my mother had matched his wife, that she had liked his wife very much, that his wife had told my mother, the year before she was gone, that the kindest day of her life had been the day she chose him in the doorway of my mother's office. I told him it was a small thing, but I thought he would want to know." Cole was quiet. "And then?" "And then I told him that I would like to learn to be his daughter, if he would be willing, slowly, to learn to be my father." "What did he say?" "He said, 'I will try, Miss Marchetti.'" Her smile was very small. "He has not yet called me Lena. But he tried, Cole. He tried." Cole looked at her in the long blue evening. "Tell me," he said, "honestly, are you happy?" She looked at him, the same calm eyes, slightly less tired than the day he had met her. "I am useful," she said. "I am noticed. I am loved." She set down her water and took his hand. "Yes, Cole, that is the same thing now. It is the same thing."
A year later, on a cool October afternoon, Lena Marchetti opened the door of the brownstone on East 68th Street to a young man in a careful suit, with a sheet of paper in his hand and an exhausted face. "Miss Marchetti," he said, slightly out of breath. "I am sorry to come without an appointment. I was told that you—" "Come in," Lena said. She had a chipped coffee mug. She had a cedar fire. She had a black cat on the windowsill. She had a new brass plate on the door, slightly larger than the old one, that read, "Marchetti Matches, Discreet Introductions since 1981. The young man sat on the velvet sofa, which sighed under him. He looked around. He looked at the painting of the winter beach above the desk, which had moved here from her mother's office, and at the small framed photograph beside it of a man with steady eyes standing on a porch in Maine, holding a baby with the exact same eyes. "Tell me," Lena said gently, sitting across from him. "Why are you here?" "I need a wife," the young man began. Lena Marchetti smiled, very slightly, at the small flicker of her own younger self in his nervous, well-tailored face. "No, you don't," she said kindly. "You need to be seen first. Tell me about your mother." In the kitchen at the back of the brownstone, Cole Ashford was making coffee for 3, and listening, and feeling very glad, and very ordinary, and very much at home. He had a small ledger of his own now, on the kitchen counter, beside the coffee tin. It was leather-bound, like the ones in Lena's office, but its spine was blank, because they had not yet decided what to call it. Inside, in his slow, careful handwriting, he kept a list of small, ordinary things. The morning the cat had jumped into Lena's lap for the first time. The evening her father-in-law had called her Lena instead of Miss Marchetti. The Sunday in March he had finally read his mother's books to her in the armchair by the cedar fire. There were 31 entries already. There was still half a notebook to go. Sometimes, at 6 in the evening on a Sunday, he and Lena walked together along the Hudson at 79th Street, the way they had on the first lunch, with a paper bag and a thermos, and not quite enough words for the river. Sometimes Margaret came with them. Sometimes Edmund Ashford did, slowly, in his grey coat, and they would sit on the green bench together and watch the boats, and he would ask Lena, every time, what her mother had liked best about the boats, and Lena would tell him a different story each time, because Rosa Marchetti had liked, in fact, every single thing about the boats, and a year was not enough to finish the list. And every Tuesday, the bell rang on the 7th floor of the brownstone on East 68th Street, and Lena Marchetti opened the door herself, and someone tired and hopeful and a little ashamed of being there sat down on the velvet sofa, and the cedar fire burned, and the chipped coffee mug came out, and the work continued, the way her mother had taught her, the way her mother's mother had taught her mother, the way it would, with luck, continue for a long time after. The brass plate had a second name beneath the first now, in slightly newer brass. It read, Cole and Lena Ashford. It was the smallest plate they had ever made. It was, by some distance, the proudest line of work either of them had ever done.